Hello team, welcome to another ATP Geopolitics video with myself, Jonathan MSP. This is Ukraine War News Update. First part thereof for the 5th of August 2024. I'm actually recording this on a night of the 4th because I'm packing up and shipping off for a couple of weeks. And therefore, you will not have the Ukrainian General Staff losses for the previous day. You will also not have news of, from me at any rate, any strikes that took place last night. I'm recording this at 11:30 UK time, so it's probably like, I don't know, 1:30 in the morning Ukrainian time, and therefore there is a little bit of information of some strikes in the middle of taking place at the moment, but obviously you will not get the most up-to-date information in, for your time, which would be UK morning and onwards. So I do apologize for that, but I do have an Andrew Perpetua list of lost stats that has come out just now, which is fantastic. So literally 5 minutes ago. This shows because there was not a loss list from yesterday morning's video. So this does show quite a lot of equipment loss for both sides, to be perfectly frank. Combat losses for the Russians are fairly extensive, but actually the same can be said for the Ukrainians. Almost a one-to-one. Russians again losing more civilian vehicles and trucks. Quite a bit of surveillance and comms equipment, and both sides losing an air defense system. Okay, we'll start with the Ukrainians. They've lost the Tor M1 air defense system, 3 radar systems, AN TPQ-48 and 2 AN TPQ-36s. Lancets could be damaged. Not sure if it's that system. So potential damage, not necessarily damage, but one destroyed for an FPV drone. Lancets, if you look down here, so 2 pieces of equipment hit by Lancets there. Another 2, 4, 5, 6, 7. So that's 9 in total. We've got Lancets down here also hitting other things other than what they were intending to hit. We've got Krasnopol, laser guided shell, all sorts of different ways of trying to take out. We've got shelling here, ways of trying to take out Ukrainian equipment. So it's a bit of a challenge for the Ukrainians. Russians coming at them with everything they can. Recovery vehicle M88A1 Hercules. That's based on an Abrams chassis. That's a recovery vehicle taken out, and then a number of pieces of artillery, some tanks there. No Western provided tanks. That's good news. We have seen some Abrams recently. There's an M777 howitzer, but nothing really sticks out. Now, when it comes to infantry fighting vehicles, 2 Marders and 3 Bradleys. There is talk that they've lost quite a lot of Bradleys in the Pokrovsk direction, so the Avdiivka area, as they're going on to sort of Prokres, west of Ocheritina, that kind of area. The Ukrainians have lost quite a few Bradleys here. We have 3 damaged by night vision drones, all 3. So that's a real challenge for the Ukrainians. And some Humvees, Max Pros, M113. So all of this stuff here is Western, bar a BMP-1. There are 2 Marders also, 1 destroyed, 1 abandoned. That's the first time, well, not the first time we've seen Marders, but certainly for some weeks. Might be that we'll see more and more Marders going forward. They are being provided quite a few of those, the Ukrainians. So quite a bit of equipment the Ukrainians losing here, and I think that's showing how difficult things are probably in a Prokov direction, losing quite a few bits of civilian equipment as well. But the Russians, okay, losing a little bit more than the Ukrainians, but not that much more. Let's see if the value is any different. We've got a Book M1 or 2 air defense system destroyed. As we saw, the Ukrainians had their own Tor M1 damaged. So, okay, both of them possibly losing air defense systems. We've got surveillance and comms equipment, a couple of recovery vehicles, a TOS-1A thermobaric launcher. I said you'd see that. We saw the video yesterday morning for that. There's an BM-21 Grad destroyed as well. Quite a lot of this stuff destroyed. Get down to tanks, track guard and shared, a few other tanks. The ratio of destroyed to damage is not too bad there. 2 out of 5 destroyed. Infantry fighting vehicles, most of those destroyed. BTRs, BM2s, BMP. Interesting that you see, what is it, 2, 4, 6, 7 out of 9 destroyed or damaged. You go to the Ukrainians for the IFVs, you got 2 out of 6 destroyed or abandoned. So that is a statistic we have seen borne out over recent times. Perun did his analysis and showed the survivability of the Western equipment seems to be better for the Ukrainian equipment just in general. APCs, just the usual BTRs, MTLBs, quite a few BTR 80s thrown in there today, and then trucks and civilian vehicles. A lot of destroyed civilian vehicles for the Russians there. So yeah, more stuff lost by the Russians. Quite a bit of it destroyed as well. You can see a lot of brown and black on that Russian list there. But other than that, fairly heavy day for the Ukrainians as well. That's obviously yesterday's figures. A few things. I mean, this is probably the book that was taken out near the temporarily occupied city of Tokmak. Ukrainian aerial reconnaissance discovered a book surface-to-air missile system operated by the Russians. A HIMARS rocket strike destroyed the enemy emplacement in epic fashion, so it cooks off fairly well and does quite a lot of damage to the surrounding area too. There is also talk about Crimean Wind Telegram channel reports that the Rostov-on-Don submarine did not sink, but it is possibly damaged. Interesting report, but possible damage is not confirmed damage, so we still have to wait for more data for a proper final assessment. So here, the submarine Rostov-on-Don did not sink after the attack on August 2nd, but may have damage. We have confirming photos, but are not publishing for security reasons. Others are saying it was sunk. Satellite image shows the tarpaulin under which it was being housed is missing in large parts, and there's no sign of the submarine there, and claims that it sunk. What happened to the submarine Rostov-on-Don? It sank. So who knows? Various claims, conflicting claims regarding that. Now, at the same time, there was an S-400 system that was supposedly struck. The early reports were that 4 launchers were taken out. Satellite image of the position in the heights of Karyabash in Crimea says that the complex, or Max 24 here, says the complex included 4 launchers and a 92 H6E radar. Image shows that one radar was damaged, although the degree of the damage is not easy to see. 1 damaged launcher and 1 destroyed launcher. So 2 launchers and a radar damaged rather than 4 launchers damaged. There are other claims that the other 2 launchers weren't there, so they may have been taken away. They may have been damaged and taken away. Just, again, not 100% sure what happened there. Some varying claims surrounding that. What does no report say in this one? Site had 4 S-400 launchers and a radar. Image shows 1 radar with unknown damage, 1 possibly damaged launcher, and 1 possibly. So yeah, pretty much what Max 24 said. And here at Morozov, so the airbase that had really extensive firms data to show that there were some huge fires there after it was struck by, 40 drones were sent at it. 18 of them got through. Obviously, that then assumes that 22 were taken down by electronic warfare, which is better than the previous attack on the airbase, where pretty much none of 50, apparently none of 50 drones got through, or 2 landed. Debris landed on the runway. Here we have some satellite imagery to show that the ammunition depots there were completely destroyed. Literally not one single one of them remained intact. So they were all destroyed. Various claims as to what's going on there. So here you see a sort of gif of that. Ammunition storage at Morozovsk Air Base in Russia, says Colby Babwa, completely destroyed by Ukrainian drone attack. There's also various other claims as to what else was destroyed there. Some claiming that airplanes were destroyed, or certainly they weren't there when they were there before. So there's still a lot of unknowns concerning that airbase, but extensive damage was certainly done, and they've clearly lost a lot of the infrastructure at the airbase as well as the ammunition. The ammunition is super important, of course. You can have all the planes you like, but you've got no bombs to drop off those planes, then whoop-de-doo. Okay, Russian media is now reporting a heavy fire in the city of Azov in Rostov region. The column of black smoke is so high that it can be seen by residents in Bataysk and the western part of Rostov. According to information from the site, the fire may have spread to warehouses. There's no official information from the Ministry of Emergency Situations yet. So really extensive fire in Rostov. Have no idea whether that was a strike by drones or a missile or just a careless smoker, but that's causing quite a lot of consternation in Rostov. Um, and the Ukrainian Center for National Resistance says the Atesh, that's a partisan group, destroyed an important logistical hub in occupied Donetsk. So Tim White says, I reported on the arson attack on the rail relay box a few days ago. CNR says it's a crucial military line for Russia towards Toretsk and Prokres. So these are two areas where the Russians are attacking at the moment and having some pretty good success. There's been talk, Andrew Perpetua discussed it on his live stream, that the drones are having tremendous success against the Russian logistics lines around there, and they're causing all sorts of damage and destruction to those vehicles trying to deliver food and supplies and ammunition to their troops on the front line, the Russians, but also railway, obviously here, a railway relay box that's crucial for Toretsk and Prokres being taken out by partisans is also going to help the Ukrainians. And now moving on to distant strikes, and of course, as mentioned earlier, I'm recording this the night before, so goodness knows what's happened overnight. But at the moment, as mentioned, sort of now quarter to midnight UK time, explosions are heard in Poltava region in Ukraine, in Kharkiv, in Dnipro, western Kharkiv, Kirovohrad region, and northern eastern parts of Mykolaiv. It looks like there are certainly drones, possibly missiles, being sent into Ukraine. Drones in the western part of the Dnipropetrovsk Oblast heading is constantly changing. So a lot of activity. I would expect quite a lot of news regarding widespread attempts at striking Ukrainian targets with at least drones, possibly missiles. Now, today, not this evening, but during the daytime, explosions rocked occupied Luhansk, Donetsk, Makivka. 12 Western missiles were reported. So interesting that missiles are potentially being used to strike within occupied territories fairly close to the front line. Makivka certainly. Ukrainian official says military repair plant is ablaze. Ukraine seeks green light to strike on Russian soil. But for now, apparently, according to Euromaidan Press, long-range drones do the job beyond the borders. And that's that ongoing issue, isn't it? That they really need the ability to fire Western missiles into Russia proper. But as it stands, they are just able to use their attack drones. And, they're having some success with those. Probably, growing success, given that they have to react to Russian electronic warfare and overcome those challenges. But quite a few missiles, it appears, hitting targets today. And then tonight, pretty much now, explosions at Sovetskaya substation, which is a fairly hefty substation, it seems, in Volgograd. Ukrainians hitting quite a few of these substations at the moment, and having some success in hampering Russian energy distribution. Right, moving on to other bits and pieces, so a bit of a random selection here. Just a thread here from Pasi Paroinen saying, made some rudimentary calculations on how the Russian 2024 summer offensive compares to the Ukrainian 2023 summer offensive in terms of territorial change of Russian-controlled area on our map. So this was the gains, it appeared, or the amounts of Russian territory, or amount of territory controlled by the Russians over the, I presume this is the Russian counteroffensive, and that would be the Ukrainian counteroffensive. So Russians lost some initially, and then it sort of flattened off, and then really as it got to, well, actually it says it here, we'll talk through these, and that's where it is at the moment. Fairly consistent gains for the Russians, including like a really large amount there in, that looks like June, 17th of June. So June appears a good month for Russia. I think July it sort of tailed off, and then it seems to be picking up pace again. It's quite clear that Russian pace of advance this spring and summer has been grindingly steady, with few notable intensifications thrown in the mix. As for the Ukrainian summer offensive, it's clear that almost all meaningful progress in terms of territory captures was made within the first 2 months of the offensive, with the initiative slowly turning over to the Russians in September of 2023. Russian-controlled area shrunk by a total of 321.5 square kilometers between June 1st and September 1st, 2023. That made an average of 24.73 square kilometers per 7 days. So every week, about 25 kilometers was taken back by the Ukrainians. In comparison, in between May the 3rd and August the 2nd, 2024, the Russians had captured 591.7 square kilometers. So that's almost 600, as opposed to what was the other one? 321. So not quite double, but certainly more taken by the Russians, which gave an average of 45 square kilometers per 7 days. So actually, that's almost double there. In a short, potentially shorter time period, the Russians have taken more. Gains from Kharkiv offensive amount to roughly 186.2 square kilometers. After several slow weeks in June, the Russian offensive is once again picking up speed. Actually, so it's June that was slower. Maybe it tailed off in June. So after that initial spike there, it then tailed off. Anyway, where was I? So yes, down here. So after several slow weeks in June, the Russian offensive is once again picking up speed. This time, most of the progress is concentrated in few sections of the front in Donetsk region, notably the Ocherotiny-Prokhorovsk salient. So that's towards Pokrovsk and Toretsk, New York area as well. Lastly, a few caveats to close off this sort of thread. Number used in these calculations was derived from the size of the Russian occupied area polygon on our map. The polygon includes some rather large bodies of water, especially around Crimea. Therefore, the total Russian controlled occupied area polygon is not geographically accurate or to Ukrainian surface land area occupied by Russian forces, but the net changes of that polygon are accurate in respect to the changes in the frontline situation. Choosing a different periodization could also affect the data for questions like which period has seen the most gains by Russia. The following weeks will show if the situation begins to stabilize or if the Russians are able to further capitalize on recent successes. It's going to be interesting to see whether their consistent gains at the moment grind to a slower rate, or whether they keep going at the rate they are going, which would be very challenging for the Ukrainians. Right, a few other bits and pieces for this section. When your neighbor is Russia, back to school prep means racing to build underground schools that double up as nuclear fallout shelters. Zaporizhia, Ukraine digs in to protect 57,000 students from missile strikes that could hit in under a minute. So they are building, and we've seen this previously, other places around Ukraine have underground schools that are protecting their children from missiles and drones that may rain down on them. It's sad, but at least the Ukrainians are working hard to protect their future. And good news and this was expected. I mean, she's an exceptional high jumper, but Yaroslava Mahuchik won gold medal. In fact, Ukraine took gold and bronze in that event. Also bronze in the hammer, I do believe, men's hammer. But yeah, good that they've got a few medals. They're 17th in the medal table with 2 golds now, so that's fantastic news there. I think it's 2-1-3, so 2 golds, 1 silver, 3 bronze, something like that. Anyway, good news for the Ukrainians. They're putting in a good effort there. So now we're going to go on to military aid. Bit of a smorgasbord this morning for you, bit of everything. We have Volodymyr Zelensky talking about F-16s. Quite a lot of information on F-16s, actually. We're now in a new phase of development, says Zelensky, for the Air Force of the Armed Forces of Ukraine. We have done a lot to transition the Ukrainian Air Force to a new aviation standard, Western combat aviation. From the beginning of this war, we've been talking with our partners about the need to close the Ukrainian sky from Russian missiles and aircraft. We have held hundreds of meetings and negotiations to strengthen the capabilities of our aviation, air defense, and defense forces. We often heard the word impossible in response, but we made possible what was our ambition, our defense need, and now it is really reality in our sky. F-16s in Ukraine. We ensured this. I'm proud of all the guys who are skillfully mastering these aircraft and have already started using them for our country. I thank our team for this result. I thank all the partners who are truly helping the F-16s and the first countries that accepted our request for aircraft. Denmark, the Netherlands, the United States, and all our partners, we value your support. I wish our Air Force and all our warriors to feel the pride of Ukrainians in our combat aviation and to bring Ukraine the combat results that will bring our victory closer, our just peaceful Ukraine. And you can see F-16s behind him and these soldiers, all these pilots and aircrew. Now, we'll come back to that in a second. Syrski, the Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces, has said recent arrival of F-16s means more downed missiles, but also planes. It's interesting if they are going to be used to try and take out Russian planes. Delivery of F-16s means that there will be more downed missiles and planes used by Russian criminals to attack Ukrainian cities. Now, I don't know whether that's just a general sort of statement or whether they really are going to be trying to intercept Russian aircraft. I think that is going to be challenging for the F-16s. These are going to be less experienced pilots in those planes fighting against. I mean, generally, you don't have dogfights anymore. So these are ordnance pieces of weaponry that are fired from beyond the visual horizon. You are firing at another plane basically on a radar, on a screen readout, and you're firing at them and hoping your missile gets in first, before they fire off at you. So that requires you having better radar than the opposition plane, even if your missiles might not be as good as theirs. So the range of some of the missiles, I think, for the Ukrainian forces using the F-16s might not be as much as the Russians. And so I'd be surprised if they start trying to take out Russian aircraft, to be honest. Certainly at this point in the introduction of the F-16. So, no report says Ukrainian F-16 pilots will shoot where they look. They've received JHMCS helmet-mounted sights. These advanced sights replace the heads-up display, allowing targeting based on gaze direction, regardless of helmet orientation. So that sounds pretty high-tech and impressive. Interestingly, both airframes shown on the ground during the ceremony, so that's one I was just talking about, like the planes behind, have IFF bird slicer antennas of the older type used on F-16As, says the Military Watch. With ADF modification, my bet is those two airframes are not airworthy and were obtained from the US to be used as decoys. In fact, I think Andrew Perpetua had a short thread on the fact that there are decoys. So I think they've got hold of quite a lot of or at least some decoys. Another photo of ex-Royal Danish Air Force F-16AM in the Ukrainian service. So, and view from another angle of the ex-USAF F-16A ADF mod. That is not airworthy airframe, which will most likely be used as a decoy. Ukrainian Air Force F-16AM fighters. So they've been seen in the skies already a number of times. These are ex-Royal Danish Air Force, and it gives the numbers of them there. John Ridge says the most overlooked potential future capability for Ukrainian F-16s is sniper plus APKWS. Paired with sniper for targeting, APKWS is a sustainable, cost-effective Group 3 UAS defeat solution. Okay, what does that mean? Well, they've had these missiles before, these Hydra missiles that they can fire from helicopters and actually from the back of trucks. These are basically what he's saying is a fairly cheap solution for taking out drones, UAS, unmanned aerial vehicles, basically. APKWS costs $30,000 per round, with BAE having production capacity for 20,000 rounds annually. So actually, just firing off a bunch of these rockets at drones, Shahed drones, is more cost effective than using very expensive interceptors coming from, say, Patriot or NASAMS or something like that. And so what John Ridge is saying is that it's overlooked, this capability, but that's going to be useful, and they are going to be used, we understand, at least initially, largely as air defense, in an air defensive function. fly over a pair of F-16 fighter jets at the ceremony somewhere in Ukraine. For now, Ukraine's Air Force operates only a handful of F-16s. So 10 of them, apparently, with another 10 coming before the end of the year, before the full 79 by the end, 2027, I think. So, we've got a long time to get those out there, but most of those will turn up in 2025. So low pass of a pair of Danish-supplied Ukrainian F-16s, the Fighting Falcons, each armed with two AIM 120B AMRAAMs, so those are air-to-air missiles, and two AIM 9LM Sidewinders. In other words, they are kitted out to be shooting stuff down in the air like cruise missiles and drones. And in fact, they could be active tonight, given that there appears to be an attack taking place tonight, possibly drones, possibly missiles, or both. At least drones tonight. And then, here's the first official image of a Ukrainian Air Force F-16AM Fighting Falcon, or at least the first official one on the ground. We have seen some footage of them flying in the air. And now moving on to the only other thing to talk about here. At least 7 Western arms manufacturers have recently started producing weapons in Ukraine, or will soon begin. And the decision to do so has already been made. These are companies from Germany, UK, US, Canada, Turkey, and Czech Republic. And you can see them here. So Rheinmetall, making tanks, armoured personnel vehicles, air defence systems, and ammunition. BAE Systems from the UK, making howitzers. Northrop Grumman, an American company, making ammunition. Rochelle, the one that makes the Senators, they are making those in, that's the APCs, Canadian company. Baykar, it makes the Bayraktar drones, making drones in Ukraine. And Česká Zbrojovka, making assault rifles, that's a Czech company. And another Czech company, Celia and Bello, making cartridges. So a range of companies involved there. Rheinmetall, obviously the German concern, doing quite a lot. They're making tanks, but also armored personnel carriers. So they are the Fuchs armored personnel carriers. Also, they are due to be making the Lynx infantry fighting vehicle as well. So you can probably add that one to what they're making. Okay, moving on to, I've only got one geopolitical thing to note, and that's that Mali has broken diplomatic ties with Ukraine. That'll be because the Ukrainian Special Forces, it appears, have been helping the rebels in Mali to kill Wagner mercenaries, and that's no doubt inspired the Mali government to say, no, we're not friends with Ukraine anymore. So anyway, that's that for today. Just seeing if there's any latest information coming from protest at Ukrainian recruitment center sparks claims of Russian interference. Protests at military recruitment center over the detention of 3 young men. Officials claim Russian special services exploited the situation through social media manipulation. Sounds a bit like what's going on in the UK at the moment. Bit of a nightmare in the UK. And don't get me started on that. I don't know. There's too much else to mention. So that's enough from me. I appreciate your support. Hopefully this was at least of some interest and use. It is not obviously including exactly what has taken place overnight, because that hasn't happened for me yet. But hopefully there was some nuggets in there that were useful. Take care, guys, and speak to you hopefully somewhat soon. It depends what my traveling schedule is like.